Rev up your engines!
Well, I was reading an article by this guy who was a Chinese property investor. He's left, and he says the Chinese economic downturn is worse than they're letting you know, which isn't surprising because the Chinese hide everything. Well, it turns out, he says, even basic products aren't selling in China. They got a real problem with people not buying stuff. The guy's name is Desmond Shum, and he was a big real estate guy in China. He's saying that industries are failing, even big industries that they thought wouldn't because of the lack of demand. And he says, I quote, the economic outlook among Chinese consumers is so dire that executives are reporting blatant acts of theft by employees. A big dairy company is producing more milk powder because people aren't buying milk. Tip of the iceberg, but it kind of shows you what's going on. The Chinese had this rip-roaring Wild West economy for a while, selling all the crap to the United States. And then people realized there's a lot of money in China too. You know, they have a burgeoning middle class there, right? But there's still like 1.5 billion really poor people in China. And they can't afford to buy hardly anything. So they need the outside world market to keep themselves going. And as people are buying less stuff, implode upon itself. I've got friends that do business in China, and they told me, they said, Scotty, used to be, you'd go in, warehouses just all full of people doing stuff, and I says a whole bunch of them are just completely emptied out. They're not doing business anymore. So the Wild West of ghost towns in some of these places in China now. And this guy says they have stagnated growth since they got out of the COVID pandemic stuff, that it hasn't come back like they thought it was going to. 20% of the 16 to 24-year-olds in China, 20% of them are unemployed. I read about people with PhDs working in places like McDonald's making hamburgers, you know? You keep growing, and people don't buy what you're making, it starts shrinking. That's just what happens. Just like, mark my words, same thing's going to happen with electric cars. That's the future. Build. But when people don't buy, shrink. Stop building the things. You're going to find this is going to come all around the world. Right? They're magical ideas of what's going to happen. As the saying goes, the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. And in this case, it's starting to go awry in China. It's only a matter of time. It's going to start going awry here, too. It can be any different. There's only so long you can go, especially in the United States, where you can build things as cheap as you want, get them from China, get them from Mexico. You need people in the United States to have jobs to buy stuff. If you don't make jobs for them, there's no market. You can't sell to anybody, and then down you go. Henry Ford is one of the smartest guys. He paid his workers a lot more than anybody else, and all the other guys said, Henry, you're ruining it for us. No more cheap labor for us. Henry said, I'm going to sell all those guys cars. And he did. His own workers, because he paid them enough to buy the cars. Nobody thinks about that anymore. Too much greed at the top. Too many billionaires floating around in their yachts, telling the world how, this is how the world should be. We know everything, right? Yeah, they got lucky and they made a bunch of money, and then they're bragging that they're geniuses. They're just guys that are in the right place at the right time, and now they're floating around the world in these ridiculous yachts. Kind of shows how small their minds actually are when it comes down to it. Well, it looks like I'm not the only one who realized Americans don't want electric vehicles. I was just reading an article online titled, No One in the U.S. Really Wants to Buy Electric Cars. Well, guess what? Now they're piling up at the dealerships and people aren't buying them. I personally have already seen them piling up at the dealership as I go around and study stuff and look at stuff, right? They can talk the talk. Well, we're going to buy electric cars by 2030. But if people don't buy them, guess what? That's the end of that. People see, hey, this technology, it isn't even perfected yet. There's no electricity to charge the cars. What a hassle. Range anxiety, right? They can build them, but will people buy them? Well, it looks like people just aren't. EVs from Toyota, Audi, Ford, and Genesis are sitting there and nobody's buying them. I don't believe what a lot of them say. 6.5% of the U.S. vehicle sales are electric cars. Well, all I gotta say is 6.5% of the cars I see on the road sure aren't electric cars. Travel back and forth, Tennessee, Rhode Island, right? I see a handful of electric cars. I see hundreds of thousands of normal cars and diesel trucks, right? This fantasy that they're trying to lay out, they're trying to make it look bigger than it is. Any fool can see that. Electric cars at the dealerships piling up, nobody's buying the stupid things. They're overpriced. It's an unproven technology. People in America drive a lot of distance, or at least they think they want to, right? So, they buy big vehicles, they buy trucks, they buy SUVs. Those are the most popular vehicles now, right? You electrify those things, they end up costing a fortune if they have any range, like the F-150 Lightning, because they're so big and heavy. Electrification added onto it. It's not an aerodynamic truck or anything. Ford says, oh, they're going to make a better one in the future. It's always in the future. So my advice is, yeah, buy an electric car in the future, not today. And most Americans seem to agree. Survey the other day, 2/3 of Canadians say they're not going to buy an electric car as their next car. Government throwing money into this crap. They throw money after all kinds of crap. Look at the 1 billion the New York State government in Buffalo gave Elon Musk for his solar panel factory that's a dismal failure. You know, hey, it's a taxpayer money. What do they care, right? That's why I say, don't throw your money in with the government money. Buy one of these things. The other week in Germany, they had to shut down the ID.4 electric production because they weren't selling them there. They didn't want to have too many of them lying around. Don't be one who buys it and then finds out, gee, that company doesn't make cars anymore. I guess I'm screwed. Shigo says, I have a spinning cooling fan, but my car overheats only in traffic. Your cooling fans have to spin at a certain speed. Now, you're going to have a hard time figuring out if it's going at the right speed. I have an easy time because I have one of those wind speeds like the weatherman used, and I stick it behind the fan and see how fast the miles per hour is, right? It could be your fans are worn out and they're just not sucking enough air. It could easily be it. Now, what you want to do, all cars are pretty much the same. Get in somebody else's car, turn the AC on, put your hand behind the fan, feel it. Right? Then put it behind your fan. If your fan isn't blowing that kind of strength, replace the fan motor. It's probably just wearing out, right? Now, let's say it is blowing the same, but it only overheats when you're in stop and go traffic. Well, it could be as simple as you're low on coolant. Because if you got too much air in the radiator, it won't cool right. But once you're going at faster speeds, the water pump's spinning a lot faster, the air's blowing a lot faster, and it'll cool it down. Now, another thing that can do that is a radiator that's starting to wear out. Because at a lower speed, if the radiator doesn't dissipate the heat right, you need a lot more wind to make it work. It's inefficient, so you need a higher volume of wind. Well, when you're just sitting there, the fans are blowing butt. When you're going 65 miles an hour, you got a lot more wind going through the fans, right? So it could be your radiators wearing out, too. Check all of those. It's got to be one of them. Choria says, my car is popping out of top gear, 6th gear. What do you think the problem is? If you got a transmission, you're driving on the road, and it pops out of a gear, it means the transmission is worn out. Yours is top gear, so that means the last gear is worn out, and it's just starting to come apart. Now, I've had some people drive them years that way. What they do is, if you got an overdrive, and that's overdrive gear, you turn the overdrive button off, and then it won't go into overdrive, and it won't wear it anymore, and I've seen them driving that way for years. Eventually, you're going to have to get another transmission. Hardly anybody knows how to rebuild them correctly. They'd have to strip it, take it all apart, they'd have to replace at least 6th gear, but if 6th gear is worn, who's to say the other gears aren't worn? My advice is try to keep it out of the top gear, drive it, see how long it lasts. Because it's wearing out internally. That is the only thing that can make it pop out of gear is internal failure of the transmission in that gear. Let's say it was popping out of 2nd gear. That means 2nd gear. Yours is the 6th gear, so it's the top gear. And it's better there because if you do have an overdrive that's electric and you can turn it off and drive it that way, you'll get a little bit worse gas mileage on a highway. But when you find out how many thousands of dollars it's going to cost you to rebuild or replace the transmission, you'll be happy with just 5 gears. Pug Mahone says, I have a humming from the rear of my car. Got no 3 Mustangs. Comes from the rear. Is the wheel bearing or the differential? Well, it could be either, but here's the easy way to tell. Watch my video. Finding the source of car noise of Scotty. We mechanics have these machines. They have various sensors. You put them in different parts on a car. And yours is real easy. You put one sensor by the left wheel on the axle, one by the right wheel on the axle, because that's where the bearings are, and then another one you'd clip on the differential. And when you're driving down the road, you have 3 choices. You go 1, 2, 3, and you listen to the noise on your receiver. When it's on 1, you don't hear the noise, put it on 2. Then if you hear the noise, you know it's a differential. You still don't hear the noise, put it on 3. That'll be the other side. It would mean it was that wheel bearing. And it's that easy. Those machines you can buy anywhere from $70 to $150 if you want to get one yourself. They're very handy for finding the sources of noises. You can use it for stuff in your house, trucks, tractors, whatever. They're great for finding a source of noise because they have various sensors. So I've got one kit, it's got 8 of them, right? And then you just wear the headphones, you got the control unit, you click it between 1 through 8. When you hear the noise the loudest, you know that's what it is. And even if you pinpoint it to one area, right, then you can take them all off and then try different parts in that area to see where it's the loudest. It's a very good machine that works great. Well, check it out. There's a guy standing up in a Ford Bronco. Well, Ford Motor Company has applied for a patent for a stand-up driving setup in their Bronco. Obviously, the convertibles, not the hard tops. You got to take the top off, right? Well, they say they're going to extend the steering and the pedals and everything so you can stand up while you're driving. And the whole impetus of this, of course, is if you've ever gone off-road, you got to look all over the place to see, oh, where's that rock? Where's this rock? And so they actually filed for a patent so you could have stand-up driving. You thought it was something that people in offices have these special stand-up desks? Because, of course, it's bad for your back to sit on a chair all the time, right? And then your butt just gets bigger because you're sitting on it all the time like a truck driver. Reason many truck drivers have big rear ends because they're sitting on all the time riding around. Plus, they have a stressful job, so, you know, they're going to eat whenever they can. That's their only form of entertainment, other than hot lizards, you know. I mean, and that's not a good thing either. So, who knows? You might be standing up in a Ford Bronco sometime soon if they start making them with extended pedals and driving so you can stand up when you're driving your Bronco. You can be like General Patton riding his Jeep and pointing at the soldiers what to do, although he wasn't driving. He had a driver for him. Maybe the next thing they'll patent is robotic drivers to drive you while you stand up. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.